Super Bowl.
Brady goes for the deep shot. He's got a touchdown.
And Mahomes at bay.
The Tampa Bay Bucs, Super Bowl 55.
Hello and welcome to the Bucs Banter podcast. It is Monday, so you know what that means. This is our live weekly show on Bucs Report. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. There's many different avenues for which you could be watching us right now. Or maybe you're listening to the podcast version on Spotify or Apple Podcasts at a later date. Regardless, how, when, or where you're listening, I just want to say thank you. We appreciate your input and your support. If you want to take it a step further and really give us a jolt, and if you haven't already done so, then please subscribe to the Bucs Banter YouTube channel. Naturally, we post all of our video content there, and if you're on Twitter, which you should be if you have the internet and claim to be a sports fan, then please follow Bucs Banter at Bucs Banter. We share all the links to our written work, digital content, and just general opinions and banter as it relates to all things NFL, but with a strong Tampa Bay Buccaneers bias, of course. I am your host of the Bucs Banter podcast, and my name is Colin Hallboom. You can call me Boom, though, if you prefer. I know Scott often does. And I am joined by only one of my other co-hosts this evening. As fan favorite, Bodan Yard is currently taking in the scenery of beautiful British Columbia with his relatively new bride, which, of course, means I am left here alone with the other guy. I'm just kidding, though. The other guy in this case is a very accomplished sports media contributor. He's not a Bucs fan, but he cheers for the same collegiate program as Tom Brady does. He's not a professional golfer, but he is very good at picking which professional golfers can make you money.
Oh, wow.
As a matter of fact, the same concept really does apply to most sports with this individual. If you like money and you like sports, this is your kind of guy. Our resident sports betting expert here at Bucs Banter, but a man with many opinions that extend beyond the realm of financial sporting investments, my co-host, my good friend, Scott Capron.
Oh, Colin, or Boom, as we like to call you. Thank you very much for the intro, and thanks for having me, man. Wow, lot to unpack there. I'd like to say that a lot of that is true to everyone who's listening and watching, because, I mean, I'm a little flushed, very flattered. What can I say? But yeah, man. Hey, how are you?
I'm good. People are already catching on. They're going to start calling you the other guy, as Jory Katz watching on YouTube says.
When you said, I'm just left alone here with the other guys, like that takes me back. You know what I mean? Like that's not the first time someone has said that to me. So, I mean, let's blast and pass. It's okay. Not necessarily a bad thing. Just rolling with it. We're good.
Beautiful. I love it. So we've got a jam-packed episode with good content for everyone watching or listening this evening. We're going to take a quick look around some breaking NFL news. There's been a few items that need to be discussed right off the top. We're going to talk what's up with the Bucs. As always, we like to kick off our shows doing that. And really pleased that Evan Winter of Bucs Report is going to join us to give us some insider information as it relates to Buccaneers training camp. Day 2 took place today at the Advent Training Facility, and he was down there today. We're then going to continue with our division preview series that we've been running. A couple times we've done it on the Bucs Report show, a couple times on our own at Bucs Banter, but we're gonna head into the NFC today and preview the NFC North. And I think it's actually a good day to do that, just with getting some clarity regarding the Aaron Rodgers situation. Finally. And I gotta take it on the chin. I said there was like no chance he was going to play for Green Bay this year. That was just how I felt. He seemed to be pretty steadfast in his opposition of returning, but looks like he's caved. So I'll just summarize that because it's been a bit of a whirlwind. It's still ongoing from when I last checked. So it first was reported by Rappaport earlier today that he told people close to him he's planning to play for the Packers this season. And then Trey Wingo later in the day went on to report that Rodgers coming back to Green Bay would hinge on them trading for Randall Cobb, which I found funny. But then Schefter went on to clarify later, Adam Schefter, that Rodgers is in fact working on a new deal with Green Bay. They've been, I guess, made some concessions. According to Schefter, Rodgers was totally opposed and not even considering it as recent as a week ago. But I guess the Packers really made like a last-second plea with a number of concessions. That's the term that Schefter used quite often in his report. And they pretty much like knocked off the last year of the deal. They took it right off the table. And I guess there's also the other concession that he mentioned was the idea that the Packers will sit down with him after this year to kind of review the contract and then consider a trade at that time. So that's where it stands at this moment, Cap. Really interesting relationship here going on. Got to be awkward for Green Bay Packers fans. Got to be awkward for management, for LaFleur, like everyone.
The whole thing is super bizarre. And let's start off with the word concession being used more often than maybe in the history of time. Like all these concessions, I don't know. Is he just like getting popcorn a lot? Like that's all I could kind of picture when I kept reading that. But I don't know. They're gonna have to play this year out, and I feel like on a game-to-game basis, his general competitiveness will obviously come out, and he's going to try to win every game, obviously. But what goes on between now and Christmas or now and New Year's when the regular season ends, right? Like this is like they're signing up for a breakup. It's so painful, and I guess if you're professionals, you can put it aside and try to win for 1 year, knowing that you're the favorite in the division, and Rodgers could probably not touch a football until the Saturday night before week 1 and be totally fine. But it just seems so like just such a big obstacle to actually having a great season, in my opinion. Yeah, as great as Rodgers is, I don't know. I don't know where are you with that, with just the whole vibe of the team and where that would actually net out kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt similar to you, I don't doubt Aaron Rodgers' ability to perform physically on the field, but I don't think you can ignore what's happened off the field. And I don't think like these are human beings still, right? So just in terms of team unity, football is a big team, man. And there's a lot of guys there who need to be on the same page for things to go right. And I think that's going to be a major challenge in that locker room. And I think guys have a lot of pride and they're going to feel disrespected by Aaron Rodgers not wanting to be there. I mean, as the leader of the team, we'll see how he addresses that amongst his teammates.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I don't want to be, diagnosing the locker room guy, because who knows, maybe he's got so much clout that it's just people are like, yeah, man, you kind of got screwed. You're trying to do your own thing. We're just happy to have you. I don't know. That very well could be the vibe, because they know that they have a better chance to win with him than whoever else, right? But I don't know. Just seems too messy to me. Like all the way everything was worded. The reports coming out that he was likely to retire amidst potentially becoming the highest paid player in the NFL's history. I don't know. It's just a little much for me. Like, good. I'm glad he's playing. I mean, I would rather watch Aaron Rodgers play on a Sunday than whatever scrub, we're going to get as a starter instead, or anybody that they might trade for, or
Jordan Love, to be exact.
Jordan Love. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess it would be his time. And to be fair, I am excited to see if he, if he can make it for himself in the league after this whole Rodgers thing, pans out however it does. But there's just so much going on. And like, we talked about last week, training camp started. Like it's not May 26th. Like it's July 26th here. It's just too much for me personally to really get on board with them as a contender. But then again, I don't know. You look at the NFC, and that NFC West is going to beat each other up. Are you worried about anyone in the NFC East? No. And then that leaves the South, which has the Bucs. And then are you really, are Green Bay fans worried about playing any of the other three teams in a playoff game, for example, Atlanta, Carolina, or New Orleans? Like, I don't think so. So maybe as I talk myself into it, that, and they're in a division that we're going to get to, and I don't know how. I mean, I know where I stand on these other three teams. Not thinking very much of them. And yeah, all right. It took 2 minutes, and I'm all the way back in. All right, here we go. Wow. Stick to your guns, Capron. Well done.
You didn't even necessarily step on your own toes. You just said like whether they're a contender. And I think, this could be the difference from them getting all the way there. They weren't able to do it last year. We'll see though. Sometimes teams rally together over weird instances. It's really hard to project in a sport where you lose one game in the postseason and you're done, right? You can get on a hot streak. We saw it with the Bucs last year. It's amazing how often Tom Brady's name's being brought up. ESPN, Fox Sports, wherever you're watching, because they're ultimately describing the situation as Aaron Rodgers' jealousy of the situation Tom Brady found himself in last year, where he ultimately got to choose his destination in a way and had control over his own destiny. And I think there's definitely some truth to that. I think he saw that, and then he saw it pan out the way it did for Tom Brady, not to mention that he lost to Tom Brady in his chosen destination in Tampa, Florida.
Yeah, and the coach neutered him and didn't let him, they kicked the field goal on 4th down. Like, I don't know. Like, that's hard. That whole scenario was hard. NFC Championship game at home, even though they're, limited fans, but like,
in the cold,
like you only
there's a Florida team in the cold.
Yeah, you only get to host so many of those, right? Like that's a really prime opportunity, and they got out coached, they got outplayed, and then he just got to go back there and like run it all back. I don't know, it's tough. My buddy Jesse, who is as diehard a Packers fan as you'll meet, just texted. I said we're previewing the NFC North today, and this was actually before we got all the there's relatively new Rodgers news, and he just said to tread lightly. So, at Dutchy JV on Twitter, if you want to send your Rodgers takes. That group chat as I'm looking is now blowing up with Rodgers takes, so I'll be interested to catch up with those guys. But Packer fans like Jesse, and obviously one of the bigger fan bases kind of here in Ontario too. I feel like there's a bunch of Packer fans around because it's such a national team. Really interested to hear what the general thought process is. It's like happy to have him back, happy to get the drama out of the way, but like, where are we on the actual season? I think it's a really interesting dynamic, and frankly, one that we don't see that often.
Yeah, I have a couple good Packer friends as well. I wanted to check in on the pulse of them, and I actually broke the news in a similar group chat of my own to my Packers friend. I said, Connor, I owe you this. Here you go. Looks like he's going to be playing. And he, because I'd been giving him a pretty hard time since the NFC Championship game in Lambeau, as you can imagine. So that was kind of my gift to him. But it's not like he's all fired up and excited. He's kind of saying, well, there's so much damage done. Like
that's where I'm at. That's what I'm wondering, just from the general. And there you go. Like, that's a good, just getting the pulse from one buddy like that too. So.
Yeah, anyway. No one cares about our friends.
No.
So shout out Jory Katz on YouTube, Johnny Santilli on YouTube, Trevor Bates on Facebook. Let's go. Christopher Cole's in the building. Corey Hall, pardon me, calling Rodgers a diva. I mean,
no kidding.
Yeah.
The guy hasn't talked to his family because like his mom didn't get the right type of mustard or something like that. Like, the guy can hold a grudge like nobody's business. It's unbelievable, right? Like, yeah.
That's why I didn't think he was going to play, man.
I didn't think so either.
He's so stubborn. Like, yeah, his whole family has these issues. I have no idea who's in the right or wrong, or if anyone is, but just his character. Like, he's very stubborn. We've talked about it on the podcast before.
And he can clearly cut people completely out, right? Like, that's, I don't know if I want to say it's a skill or more just a thing that he has the ability to do. I think he could gut the Packers out with no problem and just like never, oh yeah, I played for them. Great. That's it. Like, that's the extent of the relationship. He did it with his family.
Yeah. Well, I thought he was going to cut the Packers out here. I think he's the one who caved. I think this is a good situation for the Packers. They at least somehow talked him into crawling back for a minute, or they came crawling back and he agreed. Yeah. I mean, he didn't want to give up over $35 million. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It would have been more interesting if he demanded a trade or left, and then Green Bay was trying to scramble for like Deshaun or something like that. And then that brings up the whole moral Deshaun issue and everything. But I guess it's just the boring thing where he's going to go back and play. Ugh. Yeah.
Mustard is important, Scott.
I know. Hey, I know that Mustard's. I know that as much as the next guy. All right, big Mustard guy. But am I cutting my parents out because of a condiment? Likely not. I'm not going to say for sure because it depends on what we're having. But I think I might be able to get over that. But hey, teach their own, right?
Yeah. Shout out the Pewtercast, another great Buccaneers podcast. They put out great content, whether that's Ren or whomever, I don't know, but shout out you guys, Pewtercast. Love your work.
Awesome.
We get one of these. I don't know if it was from Benny Sokoloskis last week. I think it was someone else, James Wilder for the Ring of Honor. We've talked about that enough. I just want to shout it out because that is a common theme here amongst the Bucs faithful. We agree with you. Let's get Wilder in there.
I'm wondering, should that just be an every episode bit where we just make our case for James Wilder? Maybe just cite one new little nugget every single time why he's Ring of Honor worthy. Who knows? This could be the start.
Could be a segment for sure. So that's where we're at in terms of the Aaron Rodgers situation. We're talking NFC North today. So this worked out in our favor.
Worked out great.
Worked out really well.
We were kind of delaying doing this division because he is basically determines the division.
Right.
The outcome.
Yeah, and then so the other news, we did the AFC South already with all the uncertainty regarding Deshaun Watson, and I just expected him to not be playing. So I'm shifting gears here to another elite NFL quarterback, arguably a more valuable asset around the league if you consider his age.
Yeah.
That'd be a good debate actually to have, considering Rodgers still seems to be in his prime, coming off an MVP season. But so it turns out. Houston Texans finally, they got the new GM coming over from New England. He has finally said they're willing to listen to trade offers for Deshaun Watson. I'm sure he wishes he said that before all of this legal issues and accusations came about from all of these different women. This was reported by Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network. Yeah, Watson, I guess it turns out he won't be dealing with any legal issues this season. So it's pretty much like ironclad. He has not been relegated by the league. I forget the terminology they use. He's not been put on the commissioner's exempt list or anything like that. So that leads me right now to believe he would be playing this season, but there's a lot of risk reward in terms of like potential trade partners. Like, you know what I mean? If you're going to trade for Deshaun Watson, he's going to play a year for you, get acclimated to your system, be productive, I'm sure. But then what if in the offseason or next year, once this legal stuff,
But the interesting dynamic with Watson is it'd be one thing if it was not just the allegations, because obviously that's terrible and reason enough for him to be suspended and not play if any of this comes back as proven and true, in my opinion. But
and that many accusations. I mean,
of course. I mean, we don't have to. But I think you know where we stand. But there's no relationship between Watson and the front office at all. Like nothing positive. So it's the kind of the two prongs of what's going on here that just makes it so unlikely for him to play. Like it'd be one thing if they were. Houston's doing everything they can to win, and Deshaun trusts the front office, but now he's got this personal legal issues that's going to be hanging over him for the season. I think they'd have no problem. I don't know, no problem. I think they would still be quite happy with him playing this year and then figuring it out from there. But like it is in bad shape there, and I don't know. I don't have a good read on what's going to happen here at all. I'd like to throw some things out. Like I don't think he plays. I don't think he plays it down this year. But
that's such a risk for a team to not only acquire him, but give. How do you determine what type of assets you're willing to part with?
Yeah,
it is certainly a sticky,
anyway.
certainly a sticky situation that's not going to help Houston, which is just a franchise in absolute shambles. And their one prized possession, Deshaun Watson has followed suit and managed to, totally tarnish his reputation and the respectable aspects of his character, he was viewed as a great guy too. But so everything,
it limits his trade value, even like limits any leverage that Houston could have had trading him before any of this stuff came out. Right. Like, I mean, listen, NFL teams will put aside a lot of personal and legal issues to try to get the best player on the roster. We've seen that. So it's not like there would be no trade market, I would imagine, for Deshaun, but it has to be considerably less than what it was. Like, that's obviously not a hot take or anything, but it's just another black mark on Houston and what they're trying to do to do anything positive.
For sure. Some teams being rumored as potential if there were to be suitors, and we'll find out, man. Who knows? It's the NFL. Like, maybe there's a feeding frenzy for him, like, there was Deshaun Watson looking for masseuses in visiting cities. Like, there could be people all over this.
Wait till someone gets hurt in week 3, and then, teams are going to be, oh yeah, I mean, I think, Deshaun's grown a lot from this. And we think that's just in the past. And I think we might be able to trade him because, we have a big game next week, right? Like, it's like clockwork. Something like that is going to happen. It just is.
Yeah. Me Cedar says, I think he's a fit in Philly. Here's the thing, Me Cedar. He's a fit anywhere on the field.
Yeah. Football-wise,
unless that's a stab at the quality of people who you'll find in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I don't know. You never know with Me Cedar.
That's a pretty layered comment by Me Cedar, if that's what he's getting into, a veiled shot at Philly on a Bucs podcast. But yeah, fair enough. I was actually thinking about Philly as a spot for him, just because who knows with Hurts and
the type of offense they're obviously trying to run around him.
Oh,
so here's a tough one, Pewtercast. If you were a GM of an NFL team, which I would be, I've just chosen not to be.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you've had the chances,
right?
Right. I mean, you're more of a work-life balance guy. Always have been.
What would you give up in a trade for Watson? So that's a Pewtercast coming in on, I think we're on Twitter. Man, like I guess ultimately what I'm saying, this is a cop-out, is like, I don't know, because there's so much uncertainty. Like, I would need to have a lot more clarity regarding the legal side of things and what's going to happen with the NFL and if he's going to be on the commissioner's list and exempt. Like, this could go wrong in so many ways.
Yeah.
That being said, there are certain teams, I think, like the Broncos come to mind right away. They've been the number one team rumored around Aaron Rodgers. They have such nice pieces all over the field except the quarterback position. I mean, does a team like that, I don't know, I would consider maybe 2 future second-round picks and a player.
I have a tough time drawing any sort of line between what certain players go for on the, like, when they get traded, because it seems to be different every single year. You know what I mean? Like, so I can't come up with a package off the top of my head that.
Well, you could compare. Sorry to cut you off. You could compare DeAndre Hopkins to Stephon Diggs, and that's two. If anything, DeAndre Hopkins is in a higher tier than Stephon Diggs, especially before last season.
Yeah.
Right. And then look what the Cardinals gave up. Like, let me pull it up right here just to be clear.
Versus what the Bills gave up, right, to get him, and that's why it's so tough for me. But so if you're talking about Watson just as a football player, I mean, you're putting together as competitive of a package that's literally ever been, proposed for a quarterback. How many quarterbacks of Watson's status and actual ability have ever been traded? Right? Like, it just doesn't happen. These guys don't come available very often. Right?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of, but just for comparison's sake, so the Cardinals gave up David Johnson, an overpaid, over-the-hill running back. No offense, David, if you're watching. And a second-round pick and a fourth-round pick for DeAndre Hopkins, and they also got a fourth-round pick coming back. So that's insane. That's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
The Bills gave up first, fifth, and sixth-round picks to acquire Stephon Diggs. So they had to give up more to get Diggs, who proved to be well worth it. But it's just just to hit your point of, it is so hard to predict.
With the NBA, I feel like I have a better pulse on just what X player goes for. I feel like it's more linear year to year. Football is it's seemingly so random, and the trades are just so, like, they're not very, like, they're pretty infrequent, right? So I don't know. I guess it's all situationally dependent. Sorry, that's a bit of a cop-out answer. We could just make up a trade, but yeah, first and 2 seconds if you want to say something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, so they'd offer a second and a third, so a little bit less draft capital than I suggested in 2 future seconds, but it sounds like we're in a similar frame of mind in that regard.
Yeah, and given the Watson baggage too, like we weren't factoring in, like we were just talking about it literally as a player without all this other stuff. But
yeah, we're getting tons of good commentary here, and I've got
I've
got a prestigious guest waiting here in the waiting room. So I want to make sure we get him in here so we can chat about Bucs training camp. So hold your thoughts related to Deshaun Watson and hypothetical scenarios. I want to welcome in Evan Winter. I'm just going to switch our overlay here and get Evan in the building. Whoops.
You got this.
There we are. Evan, how are you, my friend?
What's up, Colin? What's up, Scott? Hope y'all are doing well. I can't be better. Outside of the red complexion, I'm good.
Oh.
How hot was it out there?
No joke. I've gotten redder since yesterday when I came on with Gene, and I was there's like 3 other blue walls in here, but I forgot my light at home. So like this is the best spot, and I'm literally blending in. Like the only way you can like see me is if I smile right now.
Hey, you pull it off well, man.
Hey, man, pleasure to have you, and nice to meet you.
Yeah, same here. And pleasure to be on. Thank y'all for having me.
Oh, thanks a ton, man.
Yeah, long overdue for us. I'm going to post Evan's article. He put out a great article on Bucs Report today, just summarizing some of the things that some of his observations from camp today. I read through it. I know people are eager to hear, Evan. How was the vibe down there, man? How was it today? You've been there both days, right? You were there yesterday as well?
Right, yeah. I mean, yesterday the vibe was just out of this world. I mean, it was the season pass holders. Obviously it was a Sunday. People weren't working. And it was the most hyped crowd. I mean, there have also been several outlets that have talked about the crowd and just the players in general, how stoked they were to be back. Today was a good vibe as well. But Bruce Arians did allude to how he can tell the heat is wearing on guys. And over the last 30 minutes of practice, the last 2 days, it's been a little sloppy. And yeah, that's definitely the correct perception. And I mean, but dude, guys, this heat is no joke. I just finished up my newest podcast episode for Believe in Bucs, and I talked about it specifically. Donovan Smith and Tristan Wirfs both said, first off, Donovan Smith said he's lost up to 10 pounds in this type of weather in one practice at some points. And then Tristan Wirfs literally said he lost 5 pounds today. I'm losing my beer gut even right now as I speak to y'all. So, like, I can kind of relate. The heat is absolutely no joke. And today was even worse than yesterday because there was no cloud cover, no wind. But overall, like Arian said, the guys have to push through. They have to get used to it because this is life. This is Tampa. And those who did not practice in it earlier in the year, well, they knew what they were coming into. So, at the end of the day, you just got to push through.
No doubt. It makes you respect those big boys, man. Like I'm always praising the O-linemen, but they're such athletes in their own right. And to think how much harder it would be carrying that much weight around, dealing with that kind of heat. Think of a guy like Vita Vea too, coming from the Northwest, like Tristan Wirfs coming from Iowa. Like it's just got to be a major adjustment. So now I didn't give a proper introduction anyway. So I just want to say, so like for anyone who doesn't know, I know most of our Bucs Report viewers do know, Evan is the talented lead writer at bucsreport.com. Also a contributor, correct me if I'm wrong, Evan, at Rocky Top Talk, where you cover the Volunteers, because you're from Tennessee, right? That's where you live.
Right. Yep, Nashville, Tennessee. Yes, sir.
Right on. So how long are you going to be in Tampa, man?
Till Saturday. So I've got about 6 days left, and today's practice flew by. They really need to slow down because I'm not going to be ready to go back.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's funny how you mentioned, though, Tristan Wirfs being from Iowa, because literally in the current series, and by the way, I can see Ren down there, the Pewtercast comment. I know that's such a Ren comment.
So now you can confirm it is Ren.
But no, Ren, I'm at an Airbnb, not my grandma's house, by the way. But Tristan Wirfs literally on an episode of In the Current, like it was a chilly, just like, 65, 70-degree day. And he's like, man, this reminds me of home. This is back in Iowa. So I thought it was funny you mentioned that.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. In the Current. That's what reminded me in my mind. And like you talking about Bruce Arians, he's understanding, he's expecting a little bit of sloppy play. He mentioned, I mean, that how happy he is to turn the page after, the ring ceremony and the White House visit, because it's really close to training camp. It almost would have been nice if they got that taken care of on their agenda, but I guess the White House has other pressing issues, so it kind of works out. Yeah, maybe.
I got a few.
Evan, I love I like how you address Jaden Mickens, because Mickens is a guy I've taken flack for talking about. I thought he was great last year, especially in the postseason, returning kicks.
Right.
And very productive in limited opportunity at the receiver position, like a valuable guy. And I've also always been a Justin Watson guy. So this is one of the issues when you have a team just absolutely stacked at a position like wide receiver, where guys got to be able to contribute on special teams to make the team. You saw some things from Jaden Mickens that jumped out at you today, correct?
Yeah, from both days, actually. I mean, he's
Okay.
caught just about every single pass thrown his way. He's making catches over the middle. He's making catches on short out routes. I mean, he's really showing some improvement as a receiver. And, we always hear Bruce Arians talk about the reserve guys and how they need to play special teams in order to make this team. Well, it's the reverse for Mickens this year. We know he can play special teams. He's got to show development as a receiver if he wants to stick to the 53. And obviously, unless you're a Dante Hall or a Devin Hester, if returning kicks is your primary thing, you're never really guaranteed a roster spot at the end of the day. And this is great in a twofold type of scenario, because obviously it's helping Mickens in his quest to retain his roster spot, but it's also good for the Bucs, because with Justin Watson being on the PUP and being out for a certain amount of time, they need somebody to step up. So it's working twofold right now, and it's encouraging to see.
Speaking of which, earlier in OTAs, there was some good footage coming out of Mickens, and this is just another way to kind of segue into another player who's competing directly with Mickens. You obviously know I'm talking about Jalen Darden, 4th-round pick out of North Texas. The cool thing I noticed during OTAs was that Mickens was it seemed like he was mentoring and really helping Darden, despite the fact they're competing for the same position. And that to me is awesome to see, especially Mickens isn't guaranteed a spot on this team. But how did Darden look? I know you covered it a bit in the article, but for anyone who hasn't read it yet, and I'd love to just hear it from you verbally here, tell us about Jalen Darden, man.
He was impressive again. He showed off, yesterday he had some drops, and Bruce Arians specifically mentioned that. Now, and he did have some drops again today, but he did show off the hands that Bruce Arians referred to yesterday, especially, man. If this was a regular season game, it easily would have been one of the top highlights from the game. It reminded me a lot of Tyler Johnson's 3rd and 12 catch against the Saints in the playoffs, except for a little bit more of a highlight. It was just, he was running a curl. Brady threw it as the ball was there. As soon as Mickens was there to turn around, he caught it on his back shoulder and from what it looked like, he was on the opposite sideline, but based off the reaction from that sideline, it looked like he stayed in bounds. Regardless, the effort was so impressive, and he was able to hold on to the ball. And then a couple plays before that, he made a really nice diving catch from Tom Brady over the middle. So he's getting open, man. I mean, he's routinely burning Carlton Davis. Now, I know Carlton's not really known for speed. He's more known for his length and his physicality. But at the same time, he's getting open. And, I mean, as long as he can continue to improve, he's definitely going to find his way out into the field. And I think in a lot more of a capacity than a lot of us anticipated coming into training camp.
Yeah, and there were rumblings that Brady actually had identified Darden behind the scenes as a guy who he had interest in. So I'm curious, whether there's actual fire to that smoke, or if that's just kind of like media rumblings. I couldn't, decipher the source for you now, but that's an interesting thing. He does seem like a Brady type of guy. Good hands, shifty. So we're talking about him getting wide open, having good hands, but that's not even him displaying his yards after catch, his yak yard potential,
right?
Which is another huge element of his game. Obviously, considering the thought that he was drafted to step in immediately as a return guy potentially. So,
and plus Brady's talked about it. He's so aware of making sure he's putting the ball in the right spot to give receivers the most opportunity to get those yak yards, right? To make them, to give them time to make plays in space. So just another thing to think about. That's huge for him, right? So yeah.
And Brady can definitely deliver the ball in those proper places. I mean, he's done it so far through the first. I mean, obviously we saw it last year. We've seen it over the course of his career, but he's doing it just as effectively as always over these first 2 days. So
So leading into that, Evan, I just wanted just a general Brady question. Is it just like mouth, like jaw dropping to see him still doing, like he still looks this good? I mean, yeah, they just won the Super Bowl 6 months ago. We know there's obviously not a huge drop off between then and now, but he's still out there looking just as good as ever. I'm assuming these first couple of days that you've seen him.
Oh yeah, for sure, and he looks
Yeah.
great. And yesterday he was wearing a brace on his left shin. I'm not right off the top of my head. I'm not too sure if it was his left knee or his right knee, whichever one was operated on. I would assume it was his left, considering that was what the shin was, or the brace was on, or sleeve rather. Sorry, not a brace. But today it was completely removed. So it looks like the confidence is there in the knee. It looks like everything's going well, and obviously it hasn't affected his play through these first two practices. And the connection between him and Mike Evans is something I mentioned today as well.
See, so me Cedar says it's great on Facebook. It's crazy how quickly Evan.
Yeah.
You know what's hilarious? I just pulled this up though. I didn't mean to pull this up to put you on blast, Evan. I thought he was talking about Mike Evans not
I did
getting
too.
talked about.
Yeah,
No,
that was my first thing too.
My bad. I thought it was a perfect time to do it because you were talking about how you talked about Mike Evans. So I was going to be like,
Mike Evans, yeah.
Here you go, me Cedar.
Oh, me
No,
Cedar.
the only way you can see me right now is like the light reflecting off my forehead. That's why I can.
Hey Evan, so just reading your piece today, I thought one of the more interesting. Well, it was all good, but my biggest takeaway was Gio Bernard being the go-to guy, and then in the 2 minute drill, the 125, I believe you had in the article. I mean, we know Brady and Arians are big trust guys. I gotta think that's a harbinger of where their heads at for this offense coming up.
100%, and it's obviously a testament to the faith they had in Gio whenever they were clamoring chomping at the bit rather to bring him in during the offseason. I mean, both Brady and Arians have specifically mentioned how they wanted to bring him in, and it goes a long way to show the type of trust they have and to handle that type of important, of a situation. Now, granted, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on it tomorrow to see if it's the same thing. Who knows if they throw Rojo or Fournette in there just to see if they can handle it and how they perform. But this isn't completely accurate, but I know at least 3 or 4 passes went to Bernard during those final drills, and he also caught a touchdown during the goal to go situation drills to end the game or to end practice. And when I say that, what they do, the Bucs, they line up about the 9 or 10 yard line, and they have 9 seconds left on the clock. So it's an obvious passing situation. He was in there with Tom Brady. And the cool part was they were even splitting him out wide in a stacked formation sometimes. So, I mean, they're using him all over the place. It's also worth noting that Keyshawn Vaughn was with the twos in those scenarios as well. So you would have to think right now, like I said, this all could change over the next few days. It's still early. But you would have to think right now, if Bernard were to go down, Keyshawn might even be inserted into that role, which is, and I say this nicely, which would be an indictment on where Rojo and Fournette are in the coaches' minds. But obviously, that remains to be seen. We got to see first. And then the second biggest surprise, sticking with the 125 and the whole goal to go thing, was Sedarius Hutcherson with the twos at right guard.
Undrafted free agent, big pickup.
Right. And the key with that for me, and this is something I've talked about all offseason, is so how the NFL has the rule now where you can increase the 53-man roster to 55 if you carry 8 offensive linemen on the team. Okay, cool. But let's say one of those guys get hurt. Well, that drops you automatically to 7, which is below that 8 threshold. Well, that just means you're going to have to cut another player in order to get back to that 8 offensive lineman threshold in order to carry 55 players. Now, that might not be a priority for the Bucs coaching staff. I would think it is. It would definitely be for me because roster spots are valuable in the NFL. So I say all of this to say it would make total sense, and it's almost like the Bucs should carry 9 offensive linemen into the season. Well, they already have 8 pretty much solidified. You've got the starting 5, you've got Stinney, you've got Josh Wells, and then you've got Robert Hainsey. So who's going to win that 9th spot? Is it going to be Brad Sitton? Is it going to be Sedarius Hutcherson? So on and so forth. I found it to be very interesting that Sedarius was playing right guard with the twos, and who knows how that's going to play out.
I'm happy to hear that because I would want it to be Hutchison without a doubt. Personally, out of those names you just mentioned, was Hainsey playing center with the twos? Did you notice?
Yep,
Yeah.
he was back at center with the twos again today. Was there yesterday, obviously day one on Sunday. So and that's still something I'm going to monitor while I'm here because, as I've talked about and on the articles and all that other stuff, Bruce Arians has talked about how he can play all 5 positions. So is he going to get a crack, or are the Bucs thinking, he's mostly going to be the center? So far, it looks like he's going to be the center, or backup center rather.
Right. Now, before we ask another question, if you still have time, Evan, you just let us know when you got to dip out, man.
Yeah.
But I just want to give a special shout out to my co-host Scott Capron for dropping the term harbinger very casually. Casually. I assume you came up with that Googling the head coach of Michigan and the Harbaugh brothers, and you lost. Like, there's no way you just knew that, man. Like, you must got to be mistaken.
You're making it sound like it's some word that's never been said before. And trust me, I don't have to Google Harbaugh. He lives in my nightmares every single time I go to bed. So no, that's fresh at the front of my brain. And he's got
a good nightmare face too, Harbaugh does.
Yeah, that might be his nightmare face or his Merry Christmas face or his birthday. It's hard to say because he's such an absolute psycho. But all right, I was trying to hold off. All right, you brought up Harbaugh. You know what is supposed to be a Bucs thing, Colin? God.
When Scott gets fired up, like we call him Scotch, our friend sometimes Scotch, who doesn't enjoy a drink of Scotch. He goes down easy. He makes you extra giggly sometimes. But when he's really running hot, I call him Scotch Bonnet. So I just saw a taste of the Scotch Bonnet. So we don't want that to come out.
With Evan being a Tennessee guy, I think there's a lot of overlap between Tennessee fans and Michigan fans trying to recreate the 90s. And I don't see it.
And just utterly failing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. People are pretty optimistic in July, and then they have to play games. And here we'll see what happens.
Well, let's switch over to the Pac-12, shall we? Because I want to hear a little bit about Joe Tryon. You touched on his versatility in your article, which has come up as a big reason why Todd Bowles and the rest of this staff was so intrigued by him to use their first-round selection on him. Sounds like you saw some of that today, and I would also like you to, if you're able, I don't know how good of a look you got of him, but like he looks like an action figure, man. Like on social media, I haven't seen him up close. Like that dude looks like an absolute stud athlete.
Yeah, he looks as natural as an outside edge rusher as, whoever can come to mind, whether it's Khalil Mack. Obviously, he's not as big as Khalil, but, I mean, just the length with the arms, the frame, stocky yet slim, just chiseled. Yeah, man, he's looked really well. And the biggest thing with him so far is he's been getting in the backfield. The first day he squeezed through the right side of the offensive line and got into the backfield, would have stopped the ball carrier if it was a real play. Today I know it's just I was with Scott Reynolds talking to him about this, and he was like, "Yeah, but it was Tanner Hudson." I was like, "Okay, you got me there," but he did fly by Tanner Hudson today, and I mean the dude's a missile. And yeah, he was rushing out of a 3-point stance, with his hand in the dirt. He was rushing out of a 2-point stance, obviously standing up. Yesterday, he was on the left side of the defense. Today, he was on the right side of the defense. And then he even caught a pass on a fake field goal drill. So,
I saw that. That's amazing. That's awesome.
The dude's doing everything. So it's really cool to see how the Bucs are using him so far. And yeah, man, he just looks natural out there. And as Scott Reynolds also referred to in his camp report from today, he has great pad level as well. So Shaq Barrett called him the real deal after practice.
I saw that in your article. That's big praise.
Yeah, if he can provide just 4.5, 5 sacks this year, I mean that's going to help this defense so much.
I was expecting that in the first half of the first game. Like, no,
totally
reach high.
Totally normal. But
sorry, Scott, go ahead.
To piggyback on the Tryon thing, with the way the defense was playing towards the end of the year, and then to just get this like freak young ball of clay to potentially mold and just let him get after it, like that, how exciting is that? Just to add another dimension to the defense. And that's the thing, like, to keep in mind when talking about the Bucs, they won the Super Bowl. All these additions are just adding to a team that was, literally the best in football last year. So it's just so exciting to actually talk about and hear it from Evan's perspective.
Yeah, and it should be a good short-term plan and a good long-term plan. You know, he should be able to come in and provide a spark
Yeah.
whenever Shaq and JPP are taking a breather. And then, you know, Shaq and JPP also are on the back. Well, not Shaq, but JPP's on the final year of his deal. He's not going to get any cheaper, and if it is cheaper, it's only by $1 million or $2. He's still going to be an 8-figure guy.
Yeah.
And then Shaq, you know, as he gets on up there in his contract, as it becomes more and more inflated, the Bucs are going to have some kind of relief. So, yeah, it's good to see him. It's good to see him taking off like he is, especially when you consider he hasn't played since 2019 and he had offseason knee surgery this year. So, I mean, just with those two cards stacked against you right there, you know, that big a surprise if he's not on the field that much. But he's literally, when the twos are on the field, Joe Tryon out there. So it's been fun to watch.
They're going to find a way to get creative and use them. And you always need that rotational, you know, edge rusher who can come in and spell. JPP was banged up a lot last year. And I mean, in a lot of ways, his athletic profile is very similar to JPP when he came out in terms of size. So you're right, Evan. Seems like a perfect, you know, replacement, you know, in another year or two or whatever works out there. I haven't had a chance to catch up with you, to talk with you, Evan, since, you know, the Buccaneers' miraculous playoff run last season. I want to know, like, do you have like one or two moments along that magical playoff run that stick out in your mind? Like, I know you've probably rewatched all those playoff games just like I have. Are there any that, like, sorry to put you on the spot, but are there any that come to mind?
Yeah, you're good. I can almost list one for each game. The Washington game would be the AB touchdown. The Saints game would be the Devin White interception. I literally jumped off my couch whenever that happened. The Green Bay game is a really close battle between the Scotty Miller halftime touchdown or before halftime touchdown and then the Chris Godwin pitch toss to end the game.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, when I saw that, I was just like, they just totally did that, and they won the game off of it. I mean, it was genius call, perfect play, and then also the Chris Godwin deep pass in the Green Bay game. But then the Super Bowl, man, it's really hard to pick from all of those. But I have to say the Leonard Fournette touchdown run, just because of what it meant at the time. Like when he scored that touchdown, I literally looked at my wife and I said, they're going to do this. They're going to win this game. Like that just won the game. And just how the offensive line destroyed Kansas City's defense on that run. You know, it was just the absolute, you know, foot on the neck type play that really sealed the deal.
Well said, man. And that was an incredible individual effort for Fournette. You know what I mean?
Right.
My favorite was the Buccaneers receiving the opening kickoff of the Super Bowl, because I saw that coming from a mile away. So a few of us probably.
Oh my God. You're just such a good bettor. It's
Thanks.
unbelievable. You've been calling that for years, I think, actually. Wow.
Before Arians was here, actually.
Yeah, for sure. That Scotty Miller touchdown just before halftime, I remember just thinking they're going to win this game. They're coaching to win. Right. They're playing to win. They're, you know, and then the complete antithesis of that is with Green Bay kicking the field goal right when they were down.
Right.
They're down, and then that's the difference. You got to play to win, and that's exactly what they did. And that Godwin pitch, now that was unbelievable in the time, and it was. But to me, that Scotty Miller touchdown was like, wow.
Evan, do you remember?
It just completely brought all the feelings back from the Week 6 matchup of them just dominating. I was like, at that point, I thought they were going to win by 30 points. You know, like Green Bay came back a little bit in the second half, but at that point, I was just like, oh my God, they're going to decimate them just like they did in Week 6.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember in the Saints game, Evan? I think it was in the second quarter or third, and it's actually it's the play that Godwin dropped. It must have been like a 30-yard dart on a post pattern at the back of the end zone, and he somehow toe tapped it and then rolled. Do you remember that play?
Yes, yeah, that was an amazing play too. Yeah, I remember that. And the ball just like shot up at that's like his body control or whatever. Yeah, I remember that one.
That would have been one
obviously the AW Junior forced fumble on Jared Cook in that one, and Devin White was on the receiving end. I mean, that just what that play meant at the time with the momentum the Saints had and stuff. I mean, that was a great play too.
Man, you just crushed that one with taking us down memory lane. That was beautifully done. I didn't tell him this, folks, beforehand. He doesn't have a damn idea of what I'm about to ask him. So, Evan, that was done like a true pro.
Similar to Evan didn't have those questions ready, Colin didn't even get like a tip off about the heads or tails call for the Super Bowl coin toss. So they're basically the same thing, like equally impressive. Just really good stuff.
Yeah, you stole my next line. Like I was trying to make that comparison between Evan and myself.
Well, I saw it coming. It was a harbinger.
Yeah.
It's all tying together now. It's
There
all
we
coming
are.
full
There we
circle.
are.
A Jim Harbinger, we'll call it.
God.
All right, Evan, last one, because you're being very generous with your time. I just want to know what you think is the biggest question mark for the Bucs this season, aside from injury. Like, injuries, of course, could derail any aspect of the roster, but what do you think it is? Like, what are you most unsure about or think could be the big difference maker for this team heading into the 2021 season?
So most unsure, my one biggest worry is, what's going to come out of this running back battle. I mean, like, are Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones going to show that they've improved in the areas they needed to? Granted, you have Gio to make up for a lot of those deficiencies, but I had Aaron Schatz of Football Outsiders. He's the founder of Football Outsiders, which is one of the top advanced analytics sites in the country. I had him on the podcast last week. And I actually asked him about Gio Bernard, and he made a really good point. He said, you don't want to be checking down to Gio Bernard. I mean, at the end of the day, as good as he is as a receiver, as good as he is with the ball in his hands, that's just not what you want to be doing. So, if Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones can't take these necessary steps, then it's going to obviously create more room for Gio. But Gio at this point in time is a little more limited back. It could create a cluster real quick. And we also know how quick Bruce Arians is to pull running backs when they aren't really working out. So there's a lot of questions there. There's a lot of uncertainty. Fortunately, they have 4 decent backs, who can at least make some kind of a difference at the end of the day if they do have to go down the line. But my biggest overall question, and it's not really a worry, it's not really a concern, it's just more of, a question of intrigue. Can this offensive line play the way it did over the last 5 or 6 weeks of the season, especially in the postseason? Because if it plays how it played in the postseason, I mean, I don't see how you stop this offense.
They're the favorite. They're the NFC favorite for sure if they're that good again.
And the way they were just moving bodies, protecting Brady, opening up running lanes over those last 4 games against pretty decent competition too. I mean, Washington, St. Louis, New Orleans, and then Green Bay. But then Kansas City has a pretty good couple of players on their defensive front. I mean, just the way they just absolutely dominated those last 4 weeks, that's what I want to see. And if that happens, then this offense is going to be in great shape.
I love that you brought up the offensive line because, I mean, anyone who's watched the Buccaneers, what we experienced last year, the security blanket of that offensive line, keeping Tom Brady upright and just continuing to gain momentum as a unit over the course of the season was like this refreshing breath of air of something that Bucs fans I don't think had experienced aside from, having a couple standout players, but never has a unit had that kind of chemistry. And then combined with individual talent and just the attitude, that Ryan Jensen brings and Ali Marpet brings up there. But I would be lying if there wasn't a little bit of fear. Like it almost felt too perfect how good they played and how good of a year Tristan Wirfs had. And I love Tristan Wirfs. But, for him, it's going to be a lot of pressure on him to sustain the standard he has set for himself with such a dominant rookie season.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully it only gets better from there. And if it does, like I said, it's just going to make everything more better on the offensive line. And obviously, Alex Kappa, can he take the next step in his development? Ryan Jensen's in a contract year, and obviously he improved last year. He did have it is worth mentioning, he did have another high snap today that sailed completely over Blaine Gabbert's head. So that's obviously been kind of an issue, and that cropped up again today. But yeah, no, you just, like I said, if it's almost like the Denver Broncos when it comes to the running game, like back in the day when Mike Shanahan was around, if they can play as well as they did during the postseason, it doesn't matter who you put back there at running back, which will obviously erase a lot of the earlier concerns. And I see Ren down there as well asking about the cornerbacks. And yeah, of course, but they asked me what my biggest concern was. So.
Yeah.
I like it. Evan and Ren going.
Ren's my dude, man. I love it.
Yeah, Ren does a great job.
Got to get you on soon, Ren.
There we go.
I was just going to say, and the other thing is, it's just really hard to repeat, right? In this league, it's just very hard to do it. But when you have Brady at the helm, like he wants to win every Super Bowl from now until 2050, right? So as there are certain teams I would have more concern about, maybe a level of content with what they had. But I don't know, Evan. I mean, you're gonna have your finger on the pulse over this next week, and I hope you'll be able to tell this even better over the next few days. But I got to think the hunger's still there, and that Brady isn't going to let them take the foot off the gas, which is just huge and so necessary to try to repeat in the NFL.
Yeah, and Bruce Arians isn't going to let him take the foot off the gas either. I mean, he's been so adamant about how he's ready to get this started. I mean, one of his best quotes of the offseason was when they were at the White House, and he's like, "I'm so ready for Thursday night," in reference to the ring ceremony. He's like, "I'm so ready for that to be over because I'm ready to move on." So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's not going to let it happen either.
Evan, one more question for you, if you don't mind. Quick thoughts on Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC.
I love it, man. I love it. Mainly because and sorry if y'all are Oklahoma fans, but the only people I've ever met that are Oklahoma fans in my life have been complete douchebags. So I can't wait to watch them get their ass kicked, 2-3 times a year. But no, overall, it's just going to make it that much more fun. And it makes that much sense in today's college football, because now you're paying players. These schools have to make as much money as they can in order to stay competitive. That has a lot to do with it now, even if a lot of the endorsements are outside endorsements. And plus, you got to think eventually it's going to get to the point where the schools can actually pay the players. So it's just all about making money. They're going to expand the playoff to 12 teams, whether we like that or not. That's a different conversation. But that also adds insurance that a 2 to 3 loss team will still get in the playoff. So even if the SEC is harder than the Big 12, they still have a great shot at getting in. I mean, it's just a no-brainer at the end of the day, and it's going to make it more fun. And I can't wait to see where it goes from here.
For sure. And we're just inching ever closer to the four super conference models here, right? Which is, it's the writing's been on the wall for a while. And then Texas and OU have been kind of holding the Big 12 hostage, it seems like, for the last 5 to 10 years, right? With potential moves to the Pac-12. I mean, Texas has been linked to the Big 10 as well. So for them to actually go to the SEC where all the power is, and just two more of the biggest brands to be in that league is phenomenal for football. I think it's the end of the Big 12, but that's fine.
I think too it's the end of the NCAA eventually, because there's no way you're going to be, especially if it gets to the point where schools are paying players, you're not going to be able to regulate all this. How are you going to regulate all this? There's no way. So whatever the hell the NCAA does now, I don't even know what they do now really. They just seem to be a major buzzkill. That's the only thing they're good at. Yeah. I just easily see it disbanding, within the next 5 to 10 years as everything progresses.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the major 4 leagues just do their own thing. And that's
right.
Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen.
So I know Scott told you that was the last question, but you can't trust Scott as far as Ryan Suckup can throw a football. So the last thing I want to ask, Evan, did you get a look at those rings? Did you get an in-person look at one of those incredibly immaculate pieces of jewelry?
Yeah, actually I did. I didn't get as close of a look as, Poppy and Sammer and Stank, as they unselfishly posted on Twitter. Just kidding, I love those guys. But no, and it was super random. Like this one team worker, I hate to refer to him like that, but that's just what the truth of the matter was. He happened just to be standing right next to me yesterday, and he was showing this family the ring, and I was about 2 feet away, and totally vaccinated, by the way. But he was showing it, and dude, it's unreal, man. It's everything y'all have seen. Just multiply it times 100, and that's what it looks like in person.
Incredible. Incredible.
That's awesome.
Well, Evan, really can't thank you enough, man. Really appreciate your insight. Do you want to just let us know where people can get a hold of you, read your work, listen to your podcast, all that good stuff?
Of course. Find me on Twitter at Evan_winner. Find my written stuff on bucksreport.com. And then the Believe in Bucs podcast, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, all the major places to find your podcasts. And that's at Believe Podcasts and on Believe.com as well.
Awesome. Right on. Yeah, and we'll maybe tweet that out to from Bucs Banter, just so in case people didn't catch it. Thanks a lot, Evan. We'll have to do it again sometime, my man. I really appreciate you.
Yeah,
for sure. Man. I'm here all week. Just let me know.
Right on, man. Get some rest, eh?
All right, I got to put some aloe on too.
There you go. Yeah. All right, take care.
Talk to you later, man. Well, that was awesome.
Yeah, great. That was great insight. I'm really pleased with Evan
Yeah.
delivering on that. Evan's awesome. He's a great writer and does a fantastic job. A guy from Tennessee coming into town to cover the Bucs in training camp. He's got to be straight zonked, talking about that sunburn and all that.
Yeah, it's a long day.
That heat takes something out of you. Really appreciate him coming through.
I could have kept going too. I had a few questions just about actually, like, how do you cover a practice? Like, what are you focusing on? Are you making the rounds, or like, is it best to stay? Like, we've never covered a practice. I think that, well, I haven't actually. You probably have. But yeah. Anyways, I mean, he was awesome, and we got to have him back on for sure.
Yeah, next Monday we're actually going to have Joshua Cole Allen from the Pewter Report, who is also going to give us some great insight. He'll be at training camp days before. He's going to make an appearance with us on our live show next Monday. So we'll be able to ask him a bunch of good stuff, and I'm sure we will interact with Evan again. He's always here and there around Bucs Report and various Buccaneers media outlets. One thing I wanted to discuss really briefly, because we haven't a chance to hit on it, is the video of Tom Brady that he put out yesterday throwing footballs into the jugs. Yeah, throwing those footballs into the jugs machine. It caused quite a stir on social media because a lot of people thought it was real, which leads me to ask my question for you, Scott Capron, and I want you to answer this honestly. Were you one of those many, many people who thought it was real at first glance?
I wanted to think it was real. I did, because, I got into an argument with a buddy today because he was talking about the video before the match with Bryson and Rodgers and Mickelson about it. He made like those 2 40-foot putts back to back, which I thought that was at least believable, because who knows if that's like, the 100th take and he just has to make one and then repeat it. I got to think the jugs one is fake as much as I want it to be real. It just seems too unlikely. I don't know.
Yeah, it's fake. It's for sure fake.
Okay.
But I just I like how so many people thought it was real, because not even I don't think it's physically possible. The jugs machine's on the rotating axis in the opposite direction. But anyway, cool. I wanted your take on that because I got the vibe. I was like, Scotty, I think thinks this is real when we shared it.
I just like to believe in Brady. I just wanted it to be real, I think. But yeah, no, I don't see how that's even remotely possible. So.
Yeah, one of the things I like about you too, Scott Capron, for not being a Buccaneers fan and always giving us your objective opinion, is you don't gush over Tom Brady. You've never even brought up the fact he went to Michigan. So,
well, yeah, I mean, it's pretty well known. I suppose I could bring it up more frequently, but then it's like, you played at Michigan 22 years ago, so it's a little bit past the statute of bragging about it, I suppose. But I mean, let's face it, he's he's by far the best Michigan player in NFL history. And even though his college career was good, but we didn't see this coming. But yeah, I love him. I have a Brady Michigan jersey for what it's worth.
There we go. Right on. Well, we had some other. I think we've done a good job using this first hour here to discuss the Buccaneers, get the inside information from Evan from Bucs training camp. And we also talked about some of the breaking news around the league. We promised ourselves we would churn out another one of these division previews because we got to get through them all so we can start talking about some other stuff as the season approaches. Our beloved co-host on vacation, Bo would be straight up pissed off if we didn't at least tag one off the checklist like we promised. So let us discuss the NFC North and how we see this division shaking out. Of course, that consists of the Lions, Bears, Vikings, and Packers.
Oh my.
Yeah. Nice. So we'll start with the cream of the crop. In the midst of we're talking about the Detroit Lions, 5-11 last season. New regime in there. Brad Holmes at GM. Head coach.
Did you say the cream of the crop?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I was just making a joke, man.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, I was worried that you might have actually thought that about Detroit, and you were leading off with them as like your weird division winner. I'm glad that it was a joke because they suck.
Got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're in the midst of a major rebuild, and they're doing it the good old fashioned way, building from the inside out and biting some kneecaps along the way.
Oh,
Dan Campbell, interesting approach. This fella, old school. But that is how they're rebuilding, and I don't even hate the approach of focusing on the trenches with their rebuild. Levi Awuzarike out of Washington, defensive tackle. Penei Sewell. They got a whole bunch of big boys in there. So they're really trying to bolster their offensive and defensive lines. Obviously, they took Jeff Okudah last year in the draft. And they, of course, lost their perennially underrated starting quarterback from the last 12 years, Matt Stafford, and replaced him with Bucs Banter fan favorite Jared Goff. That is also sarcasm because we've lost money trusting that Sean McVay could overcome Jared Goff's deficiencies, and time again he fails. So
they'd be better off with Jeff Goff, whoever that is, than Jared Goff. I mean, yeah, congrats. They've improved their line play. That's awesome. They still have a small-handed quarterback that can't do anything, and a coach that's an absolute lunatic talking about chopping off kneecaps and, like wearing a helmet to sleep. Like, they're not going to be any good. I think the Lions have either won 1 or 0 playoff games in their franchise's history. Like, they're terrible.
It's crazy,
This isn't making any news. They're going to suck again. And it's not even like they're in like this murderer's row division or anything like that. Who's worried about the Bears and the Vikings this year? I don't think many people. Obviously, the Packers have their own issues, which we kind of spoke to, but we'll dive deeper in a little bit here. But I don't like Goff at all. I don't know, but I think you're with me there. Like, you don't think there's anything redeeming about him, right?
You think, Scott? Like, come on, man. Like,
no. I mean, what? Like,
buddy.
Go to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. I just didn't know if you had the tiniest bit of maybe he can turn it. Like,
no, I don't. I'm with you.
McVay in a running game, then what's he going to do here? Like, they're not any good. He's way worse than Stafford. I think the coach is going to be a complete buffoon. Like, he better have a good staff around him, and that guy's going to be tasked with properly calling timeouts and managing a clock. Like, are you kidding me? I'm sorry. And maybe judging a book by its cover. I can't wait for this guy to suck. I can't wait for him to do something insane in week 3, like punt on 3rd down or something like that, because it's going to happen. Like, I'm not kidding, Colin. Watching the Lions train wreck is one of the things I'm most excited for the entire season. Between him and Goff, there's no way there's going to be a worse coach and quarterback combination in the league. And it's for one of the biggest jokes in the entire NFL's history. Like, they're going to be so bad. They're so bad.
I think if it was possible for you to detach your microphone, I would be adamant that you just drop it, because that was great. That was a great Scotch bonnet bit right there, man.
So bad. And
yeah, I can't really dispute you on any of that. I mean, I'm going to give Dan Campbell a chance, but you're right. Judging a book by a cover, I'm going to go out on a limb and say he didn't go to Brown or Yale or Harvard. Talking about biting kneecaps in his opening presser. He's a former player, and yeah, it's interesting, right? Their owner too was in their war room, and they were justifying their draft. So I watched this behind the scenes draft with Brad Holmes, their new GM, and just kind of their war room and everything going on behind the scenes. And she was right there, and they were justifying everything to her in real time when they're about to make picks and they're talking about trades. The Ford, I don't know her first name. She's the heir to the previous ownership, the daughter.
Yeah.
But I just found that in itself to be weird. You know what I mean? You're trusted in this position. Why are you at the end, tell her, sure, at the end of the night, tell her who you picked and why you picked them, but do your job. You don't have to justify each pick.
But sorry, quick sidebar here. I would love some sort of explainer on the hierarchy of front offices in the NFL. Because you notice it's Jerry Jones is the real GM of the Cowboys. He's the owner. John Gruden makes all the decisions with the Raiders. He's the coach. Belichick, what actually happens? Why do we even have these titles? It seems like it's completely random in the NFL, and it's just the decision making is on one person, or it ultimately comes down to one person, and what their actual role is can be different on like from team to team. Anyway, it's just something. It's just not a clear hierarchy. I've always found that very interesting.
It's at least not tied directly to the job title. I could agree with that.
Yeah.
For sure. It's kind of like the Toronto Raptors in the NBA with Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster in a way. But you're right. That is definitely.
Like,
there's no consistency throughout the league in terms of decision makers and what their titles are and who's really making the calls.
A vice president of football operations and a general manager, and then like a player person. Like, I don't know. It just seems like
the overlap.
Too many cooks in the kitchen, and like how you just described Detroit is a perfect example.
And the difference between the NFL though and the NBA, I mentioned the Raptors. Is the fact that in the NFL ownership, the lines are blurred in terms of decision making. Whereas I think I want my team to have ownership, step back, hire the decision makers, and trust them to make the decisions. And the Glazers have done a good job of that in Tampa Bay. It seems to me, like from my vantage point. So, I think after that epic rant, we're gonna have to snip that one and blast it out there, Scott, because that sounded weird, but because that was a great little rant you had.
Well. Yeah. All right. So we're not high on Detroit. I think we can confidently move on.
Yeah. Before we do, though, I want us to pick our all-time favorite players, or it doesn't have to be like the best player, but just a player who is synonymous with that franchise when we cover these teams. So you can go first for the Lions. Who's your guy? Probably not much of a shocker with these ones.
Hilarious because there's two obvious picks for this franchise, and these two players are two of the more famous guys to ever just be like, yeah, nah, I'm done. Don't really want to play anymore because I don't want to play here. And so I'm going with Barry Sanders because he's the first guy that truly like just wowed me. I remember watching him as a kid, and it was like, oh, that guy is absolutely unbelievable. My favorite running back of all time. Actually, I would say it's not really that close. He was just so special, and the true only light in a very dark franchise's history, and he was just he was unbelievable. And if you go back and watch like YouTube clips of him, he's still like it absolutely holds up. He's amazing. Although, Colin, this guy was 1B for me, the guy you're about to say. So.
But just for Barry Sanders, the one thing I want to say about him that's such a defining feature to me as a pro athlete, like talking all professional sports, is he's one of those rare athletes who is a 10 out of 10 in terms of his productivity, his numbers, what he did for his team. And he's a 10 out of 10 in terms of excitement.
Oh, yeah, so, I know.
You know how often like the most exciting players are a little erratic and they're not as productive or efficient, you know, but then there's guys like Barry Sanders, who is just hands down the most productive running back in the league during his entire career, and he also happens to be the most electrifying player in the sport. So
the whole time he was in the league. So
and like I feel the same way about my choice, Calvin Johnson. Calvin, to me, like if that guy ended up in a different team, my God, like how would we be talking about him? He might still be playing, and who knows what kind of numbers he would have put up playing with Tom Brady in New England or something.
It's not even the quarterback. It's just the franchise around him. Like
right. But I know
what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
I would say the Patriots have a pretty good franchise.
Yeah, I know, but you're not saying like he had to get away from Stafford. Or he didn't have a competent quarterback. But yeah,
a stable franchise. Stable franchise.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Pretty much, you know, any of 29 other teams.
Yeah, seriously. Hey, what else can you say? He's honestly, it's funny because it just railed on the Lions, but Megatron, absolutely one of my favorite receivers of all time. How exciting was he? Just throw the ball up to him, tough as nails, just awesome, just an amazing player.
Yeah, he's my number one receiver of all time to watch for sure. Personally,
there you go. That's pretty high praise.
I mean, Mike Evans is getting there just because, but like I'm eliminating my Buccaneers bias, like objectively.
Fair.
Okay. Chicago Bears, unsurprisingly, coming off a 500 season, 8-8. I mean, like again, another team I'm not like super pumped to talk about just because like they are what they are. I mean,
unsurprisingly, 8-8 was the name of their year in review DVD. Actually, I thought that was pretty clever by their PR team.
I wonder what that's selling for, that DVD.
Yeah, not much.
Yeah,
not much. I would say. Yeah, sorry, Call. So 8-8, they lost in the first round. They got that extra wild card spot. With the 7th team now in each conference. So they lost to New Orleans in the first round. And started off 5-1, completely fraudulent. No one believed in them. and they proceeded to, I believe, lose 6 games in a row and, regress to the mean, which was 100% predictable. Brutal. Trubisky's gone, so that's positive. I do think Dalton is an improvement over Trubisky if they don't feel like Fields is ready. Super interested to see how they handle the whole Field situation. Is it going to be they're struggling and all right, we're 1-3. What do we have to lose? Because they think they have a shot at the division, or is it going to be they're doing all right? Like they start off relatively decent, but Fields is just too good in practice that they can't keep him off the field. Or maybe none of that happens and Dalton is just solid. What do you think goes on there?
I think that Matt Nagy, I think they're legit and that they're going to give Dalton the reins to start. Sounds like those two have a good relationship. I mean, Dalton's getting a decent chunk of change. And just in terms of how special, so anyone who's read my work or been over to bucsbanter.ca, I wrote an article saying that Justin Fields, this is prior to the draft, is my QB1. I think he's so special, and I think he's going to – I think it was a great draft pick by Chicago going up to get him. But I've kind of flip-flopped. I thought initially you have to start him, but that team, they're an 8-8 team-ish. They're still the same. They
again.
So don't spoil Fields if he's not quite ready. I'm fine to use Dalton because your most important indicator or path to being successful is through Justin Fields having the reins, and it's better to do it when he is prepared to do so and not spoil his development, because that's ultimately going to be the development of your franchise and the current regime in charge, Nagy, the GM, everyone. So they have a solid defense. They lost Fuller, who joined Denver, their cornerback. They also finally gave up on Anthony Miller, who was kind of like a fantasy darling sleeper, had a lot of talent.
I've drafted him every year.
Yeah, me too. I grab him off waivers every year, pick him up, drop him.
Is it going to be the time? Never.
No, never Miller time.
Never.
Unless it's Scotty Miller.
Yeah, unless it's Scotty. No kidding. Yeah, I liked him too. He was unreal at Memphis. I thought he was going to be a real slot receiver weapon. Kind of, if he gets matched up on a linebacker, he's going to win every time. But I don't know. Maybe he wasn't in a great situation with the Bears offense either. I mean, to be fair, he had Trubisky throwing him the ball, but he's gone now. So, regardless.
I think he got scooped up by Houston or something, but I'm not sure. So I shouldn't even say that.
That's an even better spot.
And they also acquired Scott Capron's favorite tight end of all time, Jake Butt, former Michigan Wolverine. So who knows?
Can't stay healthy. He's had tough ACL luck. He's a really good, he could have been good. I think he was so good at Michigan. The Broncos drafted him, and eventually he got hurt again. So I don't know. Personally, I'd like to see him do something, but I don't see much happening for him. But so what? But Bears playoff team just outside. I think they go 8-9, something like that.
Yeah, I would totally agree.
And I'm sorry to everyone listening. We probably sound super apathetic about these teams in this division, but I don't know. The Lions, the Bears, the Vikings. Mash them all together, and you can get the same boring,
predictable results.
17-14 game, and they'll all split it, and then Green Bay will just win the division, right? I hate to say it, but I feel like we've seen this movie before.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins will give you a couple weeks where you're like, oh, and then he'll just be the worst quarterback in NFL history for 2 weeks, and then.
So, we may as well just get into Minnesota, because that's my exact take on Cousins. I swear to I feel like he gets killed, and I maybe it's just the times I watch him. He always plays great when I watch him, or I've always bet against the Vikings every time I watch an entire game, and it's like, oh, look at play action's working because Cook is killing everyone. So then now they have this deep shot option with Jefferson and Thielen, and before last year they had Diggs, obviously. And every time I turned it on, oh wow, Cousins looks like a freaking John Elway, Tom Brady hybrid. But then you see the highlights of his bad games, and he can't complete a pass. He can't do anything. He can't see the defense. I feel like handing the ball off is even a stretch for him at some point. So his bad is so bad, and his good is pretty good, but that's ultimately led to basically zero success for them, right?
Yeah, we had a hot hot seat segment regarding head coaches, and Mike Zimmer is one of the guys up there for me. I mean, he's obviously a good defensive coach, but when you break down their record under his watch, I mean, his first year 7-9, then 11-5, then 8-8, then 13-3, then 8-7, then 10-6. So they just swap back from like having a good, just like Kirk Cousins, having a good year or a good game per se in Cousins' case to terrible. Like there's just no consistency there. They've had good players. They've had really impressive defense over the last 5 years at certain points, but just injuries or certain things, that horrible kicking situation in the playoffs. Goodness. I'll never forget that.
And they should have lost that Saints playoff game a couple years ago, the miracle in Minnesota. I don't know. They're 7-9 last year. I see a slight improvement. They were 7-9, but I don't remember thinking they were terrible or anything. I think they could definitely contend for a wild card spot, but anything more than that, I don't think they have any real aspirations. And they're going to keep starting Kirk Cousins, and not that he's that old, but I think Mike Zimmer is proving that age is just a number in his belief in some of his guys, and also the fact that his girlfriend's 26 years younger than him. So, it's a real proof is in the pudding. Practice what you preach.
Real youth movement over in Minnesota.
Yeah, he's not discriminatory in any way when it comes to that. So good for you, Mike Zimmer. Keep doing you. You got the 38
and her.
Yeah, well, you got the 38-year-old girlfriend. I know you think it's a rule that you can't go for it on fourth down, but they have updated that since the Great War. So I don't know if you just wanted to consult that book at any time, that'd be great. And that I don't know, man. Vikings 10-7. I mean, we'll do the over-unders after we finish the Packers, but that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Oh, that was good, Scott.
Oh,
you're dialed today, buddy. Making me laugh.
Oh, only I could find it on the golf course.
Yeah, I think they'll win a couple more than they lose. I think they're a step above. They're a step above the Bears and a bunch of steps above the Lions. I think talking about the franchise's last close to 10 years under Zimmer, I think they're always a little worse than their best, and they're always a little better than their worst.
Yeah, perpetually mediocre, and they fall. Either they had bad luck and they're 7-9, or they have a little bit better luck and they've gone 9-7 or something. And so
exactly. And I let my co-host choose his favorite all-time player first. So, I mean, let's save the drum roll and just tell us, who is your favorite all-time Minnesota Viking, Scott?
It's Randy Moss. Kind of a no-brainer for me. Just from a sheer, kind of what you were speaking to, Barry Sanders, about the excitement plus the productivity. He had it all, and just must watch. And part of the credit obviously goes to being on such a good offense with Chris Carter and Dante Culpepper for those first couple years of his career there. But what can you say? He was just amazing, just absolutely unbelievable to watch. Just different. And I know that's a bit of a cliche, and maybe it gets overused a bit, but he's a different guy, man. And it showed every week. He was amazing.
Yeah. Randy's gonna Randy, man. Feel free. Anyone in the comments have gone quiet. Maybe some of these people, we've got new listeners who decided to join us after an hour and 25 minutes, and some who maybe had to go eat dinner or live their lives, and that's okay.
Yeah,
we can respect that. I'm gonna go with Adrian Peterson. Again, I've been kind of the de facto running back guy here at Bucs Banter. I've noticed it's kind of happened. AP, man, just because he's still around doesn't mean, he's whatever. That doesn't matter. Don't let that outshine how incredible he was. Dude almost rushed for 300 yards against the Bears in
one of the best running backs of all time. That's not debatable. It's not.
Yeah, go check out his highlights at Oklahoma, or in the NFL for the Vikings. I mean, in what is a normal career for an NFL player, let's say his first 8 seasons, which would be a long career for most NFL running backs, he was just incredible. AP, man. And
this, we're not talking about his parenting or his uses of a switch, because apparently it's 1946. But yeah, I mean, you can't argue with AP. He's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact he's still in the league, by the way, deserves a little golf clap, wouldn't you say?
I remember reading a Sports Illustrated article because him and a quarterback. The quarterback's name was Rhett Bomar. They were the top running back and top quarterback from Texas in high school, and they both went to Oklahoma. And I remember before the season, this was before I got like the Phil Steele college preview and all that. And it was like, oh, this guy Adrian Peterson's going to be amazing. And then he rushed for like 1,900 yards or something like that. I felt so like I was in on it almost just because I read Sports Illustrated, but it still felt like such a win at the time.
Yeah, he delivered on the hype being like that talented of a recruit.
Unbelievable.
What was I going to say? There was something. Anyway.
We got a few record predictions there. I saw in the
comments. Yeah. I'll pull that back up. Your boy Sidor, Packers 12-5, Vikings 9-8, Bears 9-8. I think the Bears. I don't think see them winning more. I'd flip it too. But I mean, pretty good.
Pretty close. Yeah. Hard to argue.
That's a good group predictions there.
And I mean, Colin, not to take over. We can just jump into the Packers here. So we now with the Rodgers thing, I think even with the turmoil, they're still the cream of the crop in this division. It goes through them. They were 13-3 last year, which honestly, I mean, obviously I knew they hosted the NFC Championship game, but I don't think I remember that their record was that good because, that's fantastic in any NFL season, right? So they're the favorites. They have the best quarterback in the division. They have the best offense in the division, best home field if we get back to relatively normal here.
Unless you're playing Tom Brady in the playoffs.
Yes, but among these four teams, I mean Davante Adams, as good as it gets. Where do you have him?
Davante Adams in terms of individual receivers?
Yeah, like is he one for you?
Hey, he's top three.
Yeah.
Geez, that's a good question on the spot, Scotty.
All right.
Yeah. You know what? I'll tell you though. I have him higher on my personal list than DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
So
I'm asking because I think I'm surprised at how high he is on mine.
Yeah, like I think he's probably potentially number one. I'm not going to write that. I need to see all the names and kind of think of it. But heading into this year, Davante Adams has no holes. He wins at the line. He wins downfield. He can catch over the middle. He's got some of the quickest feet in the league.
And a great chemistry with Rodgers.
Great chemistry with Rodgers. And I also feel like you can't hold it against him that he's playing with Aaron Rodgers because I think Aaron Rodgers could make a few like if him and Mike Evans switch spots, I think Mike Evans is that guy too.
Yeah, 100%. And not to take anything away from Adams, but of course it helps to play with Rodgers. Defense, nothing to write home about with Green Bay, but not terrible. I think they're going to be fine on that side of the ball. It's about their offense as to how far they're actually going to take this thing this year, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, the defense is solid. Not like you said, it's nothing crazy. But like Jair Alexander is like deservedly receiving praise as potentially like a top 3 corner in the NFL now. He's really entering his own, and I really liked Alexander coming out, so I didn't expect him to be that great. They drafted Eric Stokes, another corner out of Georgia. They got to replace Kevin King, who's the guy who got absolutely slaughtered on the field before our eyes by Scotty Miller.
Oh my goodness.
Like we asked Evan, that is if I had to pick one moment throughout the whole postseason, that Scotty Miller play at the end of the half in that NFC Championship game is something I'll take with me to my deathbed.
Yeah, like I was telling you, my Packer buddy earlier, Jesse. I think he's still like, I don't know if he's like prank calling Kevin King's family, but he hasn't forgotten. It still comes up every now and again, and it's like such a sore spot. Like I think he would have driven to Green Bay just to drive him to the airport, honestly. So
yeah, and they extended Kevin King or re-signed him to a 1-year deal or something, which was hilarious for Bucs fans to see. But you need depth at the position, and obviously I'm not watching him all year long, so. But I know he had some struggles, and that's why they've drafted Eric Stokes with their first overall selection.
Yeah.
Curious to see how Matt LaFleur does. I mean, obviously he's well respected for his play calling, and it takes a couple of years to settle in with a quarterback, even of the caliber of Aaron Rodgers. I mean, 13-3 last season. They were obviously dynamic and dominant on offense. They do a lot of tricky, deceptive pre-snap motion and things like that I kind of wish Byron Leftwich and the Buccaneers did more of, disguising their personnel and creating mismatches all over the field, which is another way that Davante Adams is able to create favorable matchups for himself and thus for the Green Bay Packers. They're going to be really good, I think, despite all of the uncertainty regarding the team chemistry and all the Aaron Rodgers situation. I mean, they could walk out there and make their way to the playoffs. So it really will depend on how things go come the winter months when it's win or go home. I don't have a ton to add on this division. I think like that's a nice little Cole's notes of each of those teams. It's pretty straightforward. I don't know, Scott.
More of a quick hitter, which is fine. I think we hit on all the main points for the 4 teams. Let's just quickly take a look at the win totals. So Green Bay's off the board, but I'm assuming they'd be probably 11.5 when they actually hang this number once they figure out the Packers situation or the Rodgers situation if he's playing. So, all right. I mean, if they have Rodgers, I'd probably take the over 12-5. Like, I wouldn't love it, but that's what I would lean. And I'm also just guessing at the line. If it's 10.5, then I would love the over at 11-6.
Well, yeah, nothing wrong with guessing the lines. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, like there's a lot of not great teams in the NFC, which you mentioned off the top of the show. So it's hard to see a lot of these teams out dueling Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers.
Then we have Detroit. So it's the over under is 5.5, but the over, they're begging you to take the over at plus 150. So I don't know.
What is it? What is the number?
5.5, but the over is plus 150. So like I said, they're begging you to try to tempt you to take that over. Like, no, thank you. I would actually like eat that juice and take the minus 180 on the under. Like, I'm not going to do it, but that's where I would lean. Bears 7.5. I think that's fair. I mean, and it's minus 115 either way. I mean, I wouldn't talk anyone into or out of a big bet on there. That's totally feel for yourself. I would, you know what? No, I don't have a lean. I guess I would take the over, but I wouldn't ever put anything on it. Like, I'm totally indifferent. That's a perfect number to me. 7.5 for the Bears.
Yeah.
And then the Vikings are 8.5, minus 160 on the over. So I would, although plus 130 on the under is pretty enticing. I don't know. Like I said, I just don't have a major lean with these teams. Like, nothing that's really sticking out to me.
Yeah, I'm glad that we had Evan on and lots of good Bucs stuff to talk about, because I feel like this is a not the most exciting division to discuss, especially when we hit Aaron Rodgers off the top. Yeah. But, at least in terms of the results, I mean, there's great players everywhere, and these teams will be involved in some good matchups, and there'll be great players to watch on the field. So,
yeah, there's good rivalries in this division. You know what I mean? If it isn't the most exciting, they're usually meaningful games, or even when a team's out of it, like, you get a Thanksgiving game with Detroit that's always kind of funky. And I mean, we'll see a bunch of the Packers on primetime, obviously. But so anyway, Carl, so did you agree with me, Cedar, on the how the division's going to shake out? I would have Green Bay, Minnesota, Chicago, and then Detroit.
Yeah. Green Bay, Minnesota, Chicago, Detroit. I feel like that's ironclad. Like, etch it in stone now. That's what's going to happen, unless something catastrophic happened with Aaron Rodgers or an injury, and the Vikings then would supplant the Packers if Aaron Rodgers went down, I think. But and maybe Justin Fields ends up playing earlier than expected.
I hope he does.
Yeah, it would be great to watch him, but I'm just I'm so tied to his success based on, like, I put my own name behind his to such an extent that I want what's best for him, because I think he's got a bright future in the league. Hopefully for the Chicago Bears fans and organization that's in Chicago. So Matt Nagy and team, let's put him in a position to be successful. Let's not rush it. It's funny, I've kind of flip-flopped from draft night because I was so hyped up then, but that is how I feel, because the rest of the roster on the offensive side of the ball especially is not good enough. Quite. Not bad enough, not good enough, just right in the middle. But who knows? It's the NFL. things
You're right.
change. And even Andy Dalton, I think, is going to be potentially an upgrade over how Nick Foles looked there, and definitely over Mitchell Trubisky.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I don't think there's much more to talk about. We've been live on the air for 1 minute and 34 seconds.
I think it's an hour 34.
What did I say?
A minute 34. I think a minute and 34. I think that's as good a time as any.
And I'd say that's a good indication. It's time for us to respectfully fade into the background. So thank you, everyone, whether you joined us on YouTube. I saw we had a couple of viewers on Twitch, even Facebook, Twitter, whatever it may be. Really appreciate it. We got tons of great comments throughout the show. I wish we could have got to all of it. And we'll try and do a better job of that next time. You see here on the screen, bucsbanter.ca, Bucs Banter on Twitter. Scotty, what's your Twitter handle? Do you want to maybe we should write it up there for him next time?
Yeah, it's at Captain Ron with underscores after Cap and 10. And yeah, I just want to say thank you to Evan again for joining. That was so awesome to have his insight. And yeah, we'll tweet out his article that he wrote today.
More division previews coming down the pipeline. They're going to get juicy as we work through the remaining 3 divisions in the NFC. And we will be back next Monday at 7 p.m. And me and Scotty Miller's younger brother, Scotty Capron, will be here to hold the fort down in Bodan Yard's absence. Thank you. Good night. Be well. Go Bucs.
Peace.